Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Man Armageddon, written by PerilousPlatypus. They were desperate. Ruse understood their plan, their terror. It was a terrible thing to lose your home. The Zan planetary defense fleet bore down on him, hundreds of lasers targeting his OMA, a futile attempt to prevent the inevitable. One set of numbers ticked up, shifting from green to yellow as heat began to build up on his OMA ceramic crust. Another number ticked down, indicating the distance between him and his target. The ones going up weren't fast enough to stop the one going down. Guardian.ai to Ruse.pilot. Enemy assessment complete. Automation options available. Recommended rotation, defensive batteries, navigation. Query: aggressive or defensive tactical posture. Ruse ingested the stream of data. It careened down his neural pathways, making his brain ache. The pain was getting worse. He'd been infield too long, plugged in too long. Humans weren't made to be half machine, but they also weren't made to give up when there was a job to do and revenge to be had either. The options were all acceptable parameters. The defensive choices proposed simplifying the battlefield by destroying the planetary fleet before the planet, giving these OMA increased flexibility to respond to battlefield dynamic shifts. Guardian, shorthand for reinforcement showing up, at the expense of additional time before completing the mission objective. Aggressive options showed the shortest optimal path for achieving the objective, largely ignoring the planetary fleet. Ruse found it ironic that the option with greater destruction was considered defensive. Let's play it safe by blowing literally everything up. But that was AI logic. Perhaps he should amend the naming convention from defensive to feck everything up, and aggressive to feck your planet in particular. It'd make him feel better about choosing the defensive path. Ruse.pilot to Guardian.ai. Nomenclature amendment. Defensive to feck everything up, and aggressive to feck your planet in particular. Execute feck everything up. Guardian AI to Ruse.pilot. Acknowledged. Executing feck everything up. The odds were hardly fair. 334 of theirs just wasn't enough. Not against an OMA battlesphere. Ruse watched as the red targets began to disappear as the OMA engaged. Occasionally, Ruse would interject into the flow of Guardian's commands, implementing alternatives. Exterior cameras and sensors accented the neural feed with visuals depicting the ongoing destruction. Space stations were pulverized with mass drivers. Dreadnoughts were melted to slag with lasers. Fighters were torn to shreds with plasma bursts. Everywhere, Zan were killed. Ruse didn't feel the thrill in it anymore. Maybe because he was tired. Maybe because he'd done it 17 times before. Maybe because it didn't matter. They'd already taken his home. He was just there to return the favor. Revenge, pure and simple. It was hard to feel much joy when your mission was sharing pain, just the dull satisfaction of a job well done. Ruse watched as the enemy's projected fleet threat dropped. With every passing scan, the numbers declined. When a dreadnought was destroyed, a full point would disappear. Less for support ships and fighters. The heat buildup on his ceramic crust continued, though not at a rate that risked much beyond an outer layer of shielding. He could speed up the process with an adjacent to tactics, given that he'd need a retrofit regardless. Ruse.pilot to AI.guardian. Proposed tactic amendment. Shed ceramic crust segment if orange and target density larger than 35%. Guardian.ai to Ruse.pilot. This will reduce crust efficiency by 70%. This will have a projected impact on mission outcome. Report following. Ruse reviewed the report. He'd saved 6 minutes. No risk to mission otherwise. Minimal risk of needing an additional retrofit to the second crust layer. Ruse.pilot to Guardian.ai. Execute proposed tactic amendment. Immediately, multiple chunks of ceramic crust were propelled outwards, destroying a nearby vessel that had drawn close to engage him, mostly fighters. The planet loomed large in the background, slowly drawing closer. He hadn't bothered to review the particulars of the inhabitants. The details never made him feel any better about the nature of his work. He was here to destroy whatever was clinging to that rock and move on to the next one. The planet was an objective, not the civilization. He wondered whether the Zan had played their own mind games when they had come for Earth. Probably not. They hadn't even been present when they'd done the deed. The gutless cowards had propelled an asteroid at relativistic speeds through a wormhole. Chicken shit. They must have thought that was the end of the matter. Fire off a boulder, destroy a planet, and watch humanity crumble under the weight of losing their home. He didn't blame them. It had worked for him before. The Zan Empire was built in the husks of civilizations unlucky enough to come into contact with them. Thousands of worlds and hundreds of vassal species all ground to dust beneath the heel of their tentacled masters. Feckers probably didn't even have heels, but saying ground to an ooze beneath their suckers sounded weird. But this time, the Zan had miscalculated. All they'd succeeded in doing by killing 90% of humanity is royally piss off the remaining 10%. The loss of Earth meant the loss of a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of material needs to support, and a lot of distraction. Once home had been removed from the equation, once it was no longer about protecting anything, it became very easy to focus on destroying instead. The first OMA was developed and launched within 2 years of the fall of Earth. They were a miracle of science, blending biology and technology to produce previously unimaginable destructive potential. In the past, humanity had operated within careful guidelines, rules between the nations to ensure humanity wouldn't go too far down any one path they couldn't walk back from. Human augmentation was limited. AI capabilities were restricted. Weapons of Armageddon were banned. The one-man Armageddon program did away with all of that. There weren't rules anymore, just the mission. Ruse was the 34th person selected to pilot an OMA. The path to getting the opportunity had been brutal. A battery of filters, tests, and medical procedures, carefully curating the perfect blend of man and machine. Somewhere, buried beneath the ceramic crusts and circuitry, there was a small chamber housing his body, but it felt like a foreign and distant thing. Ruse was the OMA, and the OMA was Ruse. He was a one-man Armageddon. He was humanity's vengeance. Zan fleet effectiveness dropped into the low single digits. Perhaps there were more vessels lurking in the shadow of the planet, but it hardly mattered. If they made themselves known, they would be dealt with in kind. After a few passing seconds, he reached the optimal firing distance. Ruse.pilot to Obliterator.ai commenced T-30 countdown. Full destruction. Issue planetary notification. Obliterator.ai to Ruse.pilot. Acknowledged. Commencing. A number began to tick down from 30. Dull thuds registered within the distant chamber housing his body as internal structures shifted to accommodate the Obliterator cannon. It was a relatively quick process, carefully engineered due to the incremental risks associated with retracting a ceramic crusts around the firing mechanism. Separately, a beacon launched, transmitting a blanket communication to the planet and local space across all known channels. This is Ruse. I am human. You are nothing. The obliterated cannon timer reached 0. Within seconds, the planet's crust began to slough away, melting as the core destabilized and poured outward. Ruse watched as the atmosphere burned. Ruse.pilot to OMA.command. Objective complete. Require retrofit. Request port pathing. OMA.command to Ruse.pilot. Acknowledged. Pathing transmitted. It would be good to get back among people again. He'd been out for a long time. He took another look at the planet, the molten core spinning wildly as the core and mantle spun away into the black of space. You should have left us alone. Space distorted around the OMA and, a moment later, it was gone. End of story. Story number 2. The 3 Boars Prank, written by Random 3X.
Sir, I heard from a few other teachers that you and Professor Yu used to pull many pranks.
Gunter asked as B looked down from his shoulder.
Oh yeah,
A few, Alex replied.
So, what was the most hilarious prank you ever pulled?
B asked, a mischievous glint in her eyes.
Do you know about Babylon Boars?
I know, sir.
Daisy eagerly began.
They're magical beasts known for their incredibly tough hide and how much trouble they are to fight.
Alex nodded in acknowledgement.
Exactly. They are known amongst adventurers as a durable delicacy for how tasty they are.
Yeah, I don't see how this leads to a prank, sir, Klein asked.
Well, you see, me and you were under only one order from Sloth when we attended the school as students. No retaliating. We were both beyond any level of our fellow students, and even a light scuffle from either of us would likely lead to a fatality.
So, all the abuse you endured?
B began. I could not respond in any way. Even after I lost old Lefty here, Master forbade me from retaliating.
Alex explained, gesturing to his metallic foot, made of clockwork.
So you and I settle with being headaches will staff and students alike.
I still don't see how this relates to Babylon Boars, Klein pressed.
Well, you knows everyone who knows anyone. She got us a crate filled with a few of the Boars. I had also helped her develop a new alchemical oil that considerably reduced friction for her gears, so her gears would turn with little effort.
I think I see where this is going,
B smirked.
That's right. We released all the Boars we had from different locations in the school, and they were covered in this oil.
How is that a prank?
Klein asked.
A group of Boars running around, screeching, disrupting everything. How is that not an amusing prank? The best part is, do you know how you beat a Babylon Boar?
The class shook their heads.
You have someone grab onto the boar and expose the thin strip of flesh that is weak to attacks. So, due to the oil, no one could grab hold of them, Gunter asked. Exactly. I'll be honest, though, that was mostly Yu's scheme rather than mine. She was the mastermind behind a lot of the more disruptive chaos. But the students and teachers had to wait several days to finally trap and deal with the Boars.
The class looked at their teacher with something approaching amusement. He was anything but a typical person for the first true human of the academy.
So how many Boars did you two release, sir?
Klein asked. Alex paused with a truly manic grin spreading across his face.
You see, that's where my contribution truly came in. They only found 3 Boars.
Only found,
B repeated.
Yes, but my contribution was in writing. On the side of each Boar, I wrote numbers 1, 2, and 4, respectively.
So they missed one? Klein asked.
No, but they spent a good week searching for Boar number 3, and that's what matters.
So, how you never expelled?
Don't know. Guess no one with any sense wanted to try and expel the guy handpicked by the founder, owner, and head of the academy to be his student.
End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.